After a year of the PGA Tour and LIV being at loggerheads, it might look like the dust is settling. But trust us, it's not. The battle is still on, and the official World Golf Ranking Committee has gotten involved this time. As you'd expect, LIV is once again the opposing team, and both parties have gotten as far as speaking against each other in public interviews. You definitely don't want to miss all this drama, so stick around and enjoy. Since the battle lines were clearly drawn, the 2023 Masters was the first time we saw LIV players pit against PGA Tour players on the big stage. It was like watching two rival factions clash, armed with golf clubs instead of swords. The fairways became the battleground, and the greens were like fortified fortresses. We had seen it at the US Open in June 2022 and the Open Championship a month later, but that was in the early stages of the controversy. Back then, just 13 players had participated in the inaugural LIV Invitational event. It was like they were the pioneers of golf's version of Survivor, trying to outwit, outplay, and outgolf each other. Now, that number has more than tripled. Now, to be fair, by those two major tournaments in 2022, the majority of those joining the LIV didn't know what they were getting into. Some hadn't even participated in any event on the breakaway tour yet. The 2023 Masters was going to be the true test of how far both the PGA Tour and LIV Golf had come over the past year. But hey, golf is all about taking risks, right? Who needs a boring, predictable game when you can have controversy, rivalries, and the occasional golfer throwing their club into a water hazard? And it was quite a success for everyone. In the words of PGA of America's Chief Executive Officer Seth Waugh, it set the stage for, frankly, civility. That's the tone we want. Nobody died, right? Funny dude, and this isn't the last we'll be hearing from him in this video. In fact, he just might have fueled up a new episode of drama between the PGA Tour and LIV with his recent interview before the 2023 PGA Championship kicked off. The PGA Championship was slated to take place at Oak Hill Country Club in upstate New York, and about 18 LIV players received exemptions from participating, although former winner Martin Kaymer pulled out. Ordinarily, that looked like progress for the LIV. They had just 18 of their players at Augusta in April, and the next month another 18 for the PGA Championship. The 18 LIV players for the latest major consist of the 17 who are still in the top 100 and Paul Casey, who is 131st in the world but missed last year's PGA due to injury. But that's not enough representatives, at least not to LIV Golf's administration. They've been working towards having more players from their franchise at the major tournaments. So how do they plan on doing that? That's where the official World Golf Rankings Board comes in. Since the inception of LIV, players on the tour have not received any points on the world rankings, despite their performance at LIV events. That's right. Picture this: LIV players swinging their clubs with precision, sinking putts like they're possessed by a golfing wizard, only to discover that their efforts have gone unnoticed by the all-powerful OWGR committee. It's like hitting a hole-in-one and finding out that nobody saw it, not even the camera crew. Talk about a missed opportunity for some serious bragging rights. As expected, because of this, virtually every LIV golfer has dipped terribly on the rankings. Golfers from other accredited tours have easily overtaken them since their OWGR points have remained static. You'll expect the LIV to care less about rankings since it has no effect on their in-house events. But here's the problem. A player's position on the official World Golf Rankings is a very important criterion for qualification at any of the 4 major tournaments. And since most LIV players have dropped out of the pole positions, they are not eligible for any major tournament. And that is literally a major issue that must be addressed. So because of this, the LIV reached out to the OWGR committee to find a way for players on the breakaway tour to earn rankings points. They made their initial application to the OWGR board 10 months ago, and we have to say it's not looking good for them at all. Remember Seth Waugh? Well, he's not just the PGA of America's CEO, but also one of the 7 members of the board that has had LIV's application all this while. Now, it seems like Seth Waugh isn't exactly what you would call a fan of LIV. Maybe he thinks LIV stands for let's ignore virtually everything. Who knows? But one thing's for sure, he's not exactly wearing a LIV cheerleader outfit. In his recent interview, he talked about the LIV not having their application approved yet by the OWGR. Waugh began by questioning LIV's player-operated 12-team structure, saying, "Their logic about team play being something significant that people can get behind, I think is flawed. I don't think people really care about it, and I don't see how it's a survivable business model." And he wasn't done yet. Seth Waugh added, "They are able to fund it for as long as they want, but no matter how much money you have, burning it doesn't feel very good at some point. They don't seem to be achieving anything, so it seems obvious to me that you would try to reach an agreement." That sounds quite personal, don't you think? The business model in question is LIV Golf not giving enough access. Access how? Well, we'll explain. The LIV is structured to have 54-hole events. And while that's not a problem, the locked 48-player field for this season seems to be the issue for the OWGR. This format denies any form of entry for new players except through injury. Even from the start of the season, the 48 players were strictly made up of the top 24 in a season-long points race in 2022. Players handpicked by team captains and just one spot to Zimbabwe's Scott Vincent, who was number 1 on the International Series Order of Merit. This lack of access is believed to be why the LIV was not awarded OWGR points. You're probably wondering, though, regardless of the reason behind the OWGR's decision, should it take this long to get resolved? We mean the LIV have even stated that they are open to any possible solution as long as they get their points. But Seth Waugh doesn't think it's that easy. Mathematics can solve some aspects of their structure, but there may be some fundamental issues that are more difficult. There's the possibility of a confrontation with the team. And then there's access. How do you get demoted and promoted? Seth is a member of a board of 7, so it's fair to believe whatever he says is him speaking for the OWGR board. And here's his final take on the matter. They received our most recent response weeks ago, and we have yet to hear back. They formed the mistaken impression that this would be a short procedure. It has never been. As far as I know, every application has taken a year or more. In simpler words, the LIV shouldn't expect any response for at least a year plus. And what do Greg Norman and the other board members of the Saudi-backed franchise have to say about that? If you know the LIV, one thing about them is that they never back down from a fight. We can hardly say then that it came as a surprise when a representative of LIV Golf stated that Waugh, OWGR, were making false claims. According to the LIV's correspondence, they claim that the OWGR has, twice this year, asked some questions they believe to be irrelevant to the case. Oh yeah, it turns out these questions are regarding the OWGR asking for a look into the LIV's financial books. And that, as we're sure everyone knows, is something the LIV will never comply with. The LIV Golf spokesman further stated that they had questioned the OWGR on how their financials have anything to do with their application for ranking points. In closing, the representative said, "We have also been categorical on our willingness to make adjustments, but they have yet to provide any direction. According to the most recent letter we got, they are still in additional considerations over our application, with no clear road forward. We welcome and eagerly await their reaction. From the look of things, this one will drag out for a while. There's almost no doubt that LIV players will stick with their new tour until the world ranking points issue is resolved. But not every golfer has that patience, particularly not the 2023 Corales Punta Cana Championship winner Matt Wallace. The Corales Championship in March marked Wallace's 11th professional career win, but it was his first on the PGA Tour after 5 years of waiting. And having waited that long for a win, Wallace knows what it means and has said that he wouldn't trade it for the millions of dollars the LIV has to offer. Before you think he's just being modest, he actually mentioned that the LIV offered him a spot on their tour, but he declined. It definitely wasn't an issue of money because we know the LIV have got more than enough cash to woo any player in. For Matt Wallace, declining the offer was because it was the highs and lows of golf that kept him going, not the monetary value. He further explained that by highs and lows, he meant world ranking points, and he wasn't willing to trade that for anything. Wallace, whose highest ranking so far came in July 2019, when he was placed 23rd in the world, even took a dig at another golfer who turned pro 2 years after him, Talor Gooch. Gooch is one of those who traded their PGA Tour card, and his decision looks to be paying off big time this 2023 season. He has won back-to-back LIV titles, and in the process picked up around $10 million. In total, he has made about $19 million in less than a year on LIV Golf. That is some mouth-watering numbers, but Wallace could care less, and he wasn't afraid to say it. I saw that my mate Talor Gooch has earned $19 million on LIV now or something. He received no world ranking points, no FedEx Cup points, nothing except a check and a trophy, and he beat a few guys on the tour. Awesome. He's definitely the finest golfer in the world, but that's about all he's got. Damn, he's feisty. And there's more where that came from. Wallace added, "I know he likes his wine, so he'll have bought a bunch. But for me, the things that get me up in the morning are world ranking points, FedEx Cup points, and then the money. Because the first two take care of the third. That's what gets me buzzed." Why he's taking a dig at Talor Gooch in particular, we'll probably never know. But don't be surprised if you see Matt Wallace and Seth Waugh playing a friendly game of golf together. They clearly share the same values of disdain for the LIV, and if it's up to them, the PGA Tour will return to being the singular ruling golf franchise. The only thing is, it isn't up to them. LIV Golf isn't going to back down easily on not getting world ranking points, and the OWGR doesn't seem convinced yet. Only time will tell who budges first, and whenever time does tell, we'll be right here to give you all of the info.